Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Please hit subscribe if you're new. As ever, appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in. I'm going to quote from an article on Boxing Scene. The headline is Frank Warren confirms Tete is out. February the 10th show moves forward. As first reported on BoxingScene.com, a calf injury has forced Zolani Tete to postpone his WBO World Bantamweight title defence against Omar Narvaez. Tete, 29, was due to defend his crown at London's Copperbox Arena on Saturday 10th of Feb, but will now make his mandatory defence against the Argentinian at a later date in 2018. I'm going to stop quoting from the article now, because if you want to check out the article, it's still on the Boxing Scene homepage. You don't need me to read it out, but it goes on to talk about some of the other fights in the bill that have been confirmed and announced. The three big name fighters, Anthony Yarde, Bradley Skeet and Daniel Dubois. So let's talk through their fights and their opponents in order. Daniel Dubois, 6-0, takes on DL Jones, Dave Jones, who is 8-0-1. Now, a lot of people won't have seen Dave Jones fight. He's 6'5", he's 36 years old, and he's 8-0 with one draw. I have seen him fight, and I don't think he is the kind of fighter to cause Daniel Dubois too many problems. Of his 8 wins, none of them have come by way of stoppage. The draw, I actually watched this draw. I watched the draw in preparation for Dubois' fight against Dorian Darts, because Dorian Darts was the person who Dave Jones drew against. And in that fight, if you take the time to watch it, very much a sort of area title level scrap, with both men going at it with, you know, only a level of technique, only a level of defence, etc. Let's put the Dorian Darts draw to one side. I'm looking down Dave Jones's resume. I think I am correct in saying, in fact I am correct in saying, every single other opponent that Dave Jones has been in with, other than Dorian Darts, has a losing record. The one time he stepped up to winning record level, when he fought Dorian Darts, you know, he's not only gone the distance, in fact, he's gone the distance in all his fights, so he's not the most heavy-handed, but he's dropped to draw. And we saw the difference in levels between Dorian Darts and Daniel Dubois when they fought. Looking at Dave Jones, I think he's got limited technique. I think he's got limited defence. I think he's going to be another very, very, very easy pickings for Daniel Dubois. Now, I can see how they're trying to build Daniel Dubois. I can see the kind of resume that they're trying to give Daniel Dubois. You know, if you look at Daniel Dubois' resume so far, 1-0, 3-1, 13-5, 15-1, 8-3, 12-5. Clearly, they're trying to build Daniel Dubois by consistently putting him in with fighters with winning records and fighters who have won a lot more than they've lost. You know, Dubois hasn't fought a single fighter with a losing record. In fact, Dubois hasn't fought a single fighter with anything close to a losing record. But what they're doing is kind of putting that hype before learning experiences, because what we're seeing is, yes, Daniel Dubois is fighting another guy with a winning record. In fact, he's actually fighting a guy who's undefeated and he's defending an area title. Having said all of that, he's not getting the rounds from these fights. He's not getting the learning experiences from these fights. And my take on it is, and there'll be people out there who've seen many more Dave Jones fights than myself. I've only seen one. My take on it is that whilst these fights are building his record and making him look like a killer on paper, he's not actually learning anything from them. And I've been saying now for the last 2 or 3 Daniel Dubois fights, what we need to see him in against are the durable journeymen, the guys who are going to take him rounds, the guys who are going to ask him questions. You look back at Anthony Joshua's resume, look at the fights he had against Konstantin Eretz, Denis Baktov, Kevin Johnson. You know, I'm not saying it has to be one of them guys. You know, but why not someone who's going to give him a few rounds, give him a little bit of experience, someone who's a bit wily. Sometimes what you'll find is these experienced journeymen are more wily than an 8-0 prospect like Dave Jones. You know, that's just my take. The name amongst the British boxing hardcores is Kamil Sokolowski. He's a journeyman with a losing record, but this is a guy who's caused a few upsets. He knocked out AJ Carter. He's been the distance with some real well-known British contenders. He went the distance last time out, if I'm correct. In fact, he did, with none other than David Price. You know, that's the kind of opponent that's going to teach Daniel Dubois some lessons. That's the kind of opponent who's going to make sure Dubois is kept honest, mind his P's and Q's. And for me, fundamentally, that's actually the kind of test I would rather see Dubois in with. as opposed to a guy like Dave Jones. Yes, you could spin the yarn that Dave Jones is an undefeated 6'5" heavyweight who's coming to protect his unbeaten record. But in reality, you kind of have to ask yourself, does he have the class? Does he have the defense? Does he have the power? Does he have the technique to cause a guy like Daniel Dubois any questions? And, I'm not sure. Dave Jones may turn out to be one of the toughest guys since George Foreman. I don't know. But my prediction is that this will be another early night for Daniel Dubois. Just having a bit of light refreshment as I'm talking to you guys tonight. Anthony Yarde, 14-0, faces Tony Avalon, 26-9 with 2 draws. I must admit, off the top of my head, I can't say I've seen Tony Avalon fight, although having box-checked him, he has got some names I recognise on his resume. 26 wins with 5 KOs, so another notably very, very light puncher. He comes into the ring with a 14% KO ratio. 9 losses with 2 stoppage losses and 2 draws. 6'2", 33-year-old. BoxRec have him as the 51st best light heavyweight on the planet. So that kind of gives you a bit of a perspective. He lost to UD in 2016 and has come back by beating a 41-31 opponent and a 5-9 opponent. If you look at his resume, there's quite a few dodgy losing records on there. So in 2016, he fought a guy who was 19-38, 15-35. To be fair to him, there's a 22-8, there's a 14-1, there's a 22-1 in there as well. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh. He got knocked out by Jürgen Bremer in 2013. He lost a split decision to Edward Gutneck, who, Edward Gutneck will be a guy probably best known to UK fans for his fight with George Groves. That was a fight that ended in pretty terrible circumstances, with Gutneck sustaining a serious injury. But, this guy, I haven't seen him fight. I need to do my due diligence on him, obviously, and watch some tape on him. But, you're looking at a guy here with 9 losses who seems to have lost whenever he's stepped up to that European area code, let's put it that way. And, obviously when he stepped up to more world levels against Jürgen Bremer, he's been stopped in short order, if you like. Of his wins, there's a few, they're not names I necessarily recognise, but there's a few wins against guys with semi-credible records numerically. Obviously, when I have time to look into them a bit more, we'll delve behind that 22-1 and that 14-1 and see, what those wins actually mean. But yeah, it doesn't appear at first glance that this is a notable step forward from a guy like Nikolai Suzlocka. Maybe it's a guy at a similar level. Maybe it's a guy slightly lower than Suzlocka. It certainly doesn't appear to instantaneously catch the eye as a big step forward. Bradley Skeet fights for the vacant WBC International Welterweight title against Laszlo Toth, who is 25-3 with 1 draw. I'm just having a look down Laszlo Toth's resume to see if I recognise any of his opponents, and I think it's going to be quite unlikely. A lot of the fights have taken place in Austria, a fight in Germany, a fight in South Africa. Just having a look, he lost to an 11-0 prospect in 2017, 13-0 prospect in 16. Oh, he lost to Vyacheslav Senchenko, who's obviously a Kell Brook and Paulie Malignaggi victim. So he lost to him. That's a well-known name. A lot of his wins, some of these records. I mean, I'm being a bit harsh here because I'm going well back on his resume, but okay. I'm just going to read out a list of records from 2011 onwards. 8-47, 6-5, 4-55, 13-75, 9-42, 2-3, debut, 1-20, 1-0, 7-23. And it goes on as well. Even in 2017, he fought a guy without any wins. In 2015, he fought a guy with 18 losses. In 2014, he fought a guy with 67 losses. So let's make no bones about it. It's a padded record. Hungarian welterweight, 5'11.5". BoxRec have him as the 42nd best welterweight in the world. Look, he's someone. Again, you can't just rule these fights out on paper. I noticed that whenever he's fought an 11-0 fighter, a 13-0 fighter. He's been decisioned, and he's obviously lost to Senchenko as well, who represents. Yeah, he's not. He's certainly a European level fighter on his day, if not a bit higher than that. There's signs of durability. You know, he's never been stopped. He carries. Well, his KO percentage is significantly higher than Dave Jones, who must have a 0%, and Tony Avalon, who's got a 14%. Laszlo Toth has a 59% KO ratio. So, you know, presumably he's. You know, he looks relatively solid on paper. Whether he's going to have the skills and the smarts of a guy like Bradley Skeet, who continues to impress me, you know, we'll have to see. But as for Bradley Skeet, I like Bradley Skeet. I've been watching him for years, but he needs to get a move on now. You know, he's 30 years old, not getting any younger. Boxrec have him as the 25th best welterweight in the world. He's just kind of stagnated, really. He's kind of stagnated. You know, I remember watching him back in the day. I'm looking at his resume now. 2013 he fought Colin Lyons. You know, I remember watching that fight thinking he needs to get a push, this guy. You need to move him up, move him towards a world level fight. He obviously had the setback to Frankie Gavin in 2014. You know, and since then, you know, the Eggington fight. Look at the opportunities Eggington has had subsequent to that matchup. Skeet took him to school, really. And Skeet's kind of gone under the radar, really. He's fought guys like John Fain, Shane Singleton, Dale Evans. You know, I know he's defending his British title, but these are, you know, these are very much domestic level names. I guess that's what you'd expect with a British title. But you just kind of think Skeet needs to do something. And Laszlo Toth, maybe he's a far better fighter than his resume suggests. Maybe I'm being far too hasty talking on it before I've looked him up. But you just don't really get the inclination that he's the guy who's going to come and give Bradley Skeet a test. And perhaps even more importantly than that, you kind of don't really get the impression that he's going to be the guy to take Bradley Skeet's profile to a next level. So, look, Frank Warren has a habit of making these shows excellent. You got Pigford on the bill, you got Boy Jones Jr. on the bill, you got Archie Sharp on the bill, you got Zelfa Barrett on the bill. You know, these are hot prospects. These are guys who you want to see. These are guys who can be involved in very good fights. So who knows? Maybe they'll get matched up with good competition. Maybe we'll see them in meaningful fights. Maybe, you know, their matchups will turn into real barn burners. I don't know. Looking at this bill, and I know people give me stick and call me an Eddie Hearn fanboy, whatever. Looking at this bill, I'm not going to lie, I am disappointed. Zolani Tete off the bill. You know, there's the world class gone immediately. Daniel Dubois in against a guy who drew with Dorian darts. I'd be surprised if Jones gives him rounds. Anthony Yarde, very much at the same level as Sislocka, if not a bit of a step back. Bradley Skeet fighting Laszlo Toth. You know, I think the bill lacks excitement in terms of the matchups. I think it lacks a class fight, really, if I'm frank. I always give these bills a view. I'll be watching it, don't get me wrong, I'll be watching it and I'll be covering it. Frank Warren deserves props, because these bills more than often than not turn out to be absolute barnstormers that we're talking about for weeks afterwards. But yeah, for me, these opponents are, you know, they're not putting butterflies in my stomach, let's put it that way. And, you know, Tete off the bill is the same as well. Anyway, guys, I've talked long enough about this one. A few people asked me my thoughts, so I wanted to cover it. Please let me know your thoughts on these matchups. Let me know if I've missed something on any of the opponents. Leave your comments in the section below. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, you haven't done so before for whatever reason, please do press subscribe. Many thanks for tuning in.